Life Sciences, Lesson 27. Topic: Diversity, Change and Continuity. Social Behavior. Turn to lessons 27 to 28 in the Learner's Workbook. These lessons include an individual activity with formative assessment and collection of evidence. Integration, links to life, geographical population dynamics, environmental sciences. This lesson integrates with life orientation. Prior knowledge. In grade 8 and 10, you learn that we create the environment in which we can live. Lesson overview. In this lesson, you will understand that the relationships between the biotic and abiotic factors will determine social behavior.
Hello everybody. Well, we're going to be continuing from last week where we were doing population studies. This week we're going to be going through density independent parameters.
Hi learners, let me first talk about density dependent factors. Remember we did that and we discussed how numbers of organisms are density dependent, where the organism will die because of the numbers of that organisms in that population.
And yeah, people also remember that it was based on everything that needs to live, needs food, water, space and shelter. And when that food, water, space and shelter is impacted on, it affects the numbers. Also predation, we discussed, it also affects the numbers. Disease, one person versus 20 people living in the same place, you're going to make everyone ill if you are ill. So that was density dependent. Now when we go to density independent, this has got nothing to do with numbers. In other words, it is a natural catastrophe. If we look here, nothing to do with the numbers in a population. They are independent of the numbers. The population will be affected regardless of the number of individuals. So if you look at an earthquake, the earth doesn't sort of say, let me quake here so that I can destroy 100 people instead of quaking there where I can kill 150,000 people. It doesn't happen. You're going to have your earthquakes, you're going to have your fault fires, you're going to have your hurricanes. We had, what was that thing they had in Durban a couple of weeks ago?
Floods or something.
Yeah, floods as well. It happens, these things. So if we look back at our promethium, it causes a drastic decrease in the population size. The population is able to recover after the event and stabilize at its carrying capacity. Now, if we look at density independent factors, they are,
okay, we look at natural catastrophes. Remember, this will include the droughts, hurricanes, earthquakes, and floods. The population density is reduced non-biologically. Remember, not about numbers. Climate, severe temperatures affect population numbers. Very cold winters, individuals die, even though food is available. It's only the strongest that would survive, and that's known as natural selection occurs. Adverse climates, food shortages comes about. So individuals become weaker and they die of starvation. So those are all density independent factors.
Okay, people, in other words, density dependent will depend on the numbers. So food and water, if there's one organism versus 100 need a lot more food, water, shelter, space. Predators will be able to catch the prey easier. Disease will spread quicker. So that is density dependent. Density independent is, as Verita said, it's your natural catastrophes and climate. We cannot control climate. And the number of organisms doesn't control the climate. In other words, they are independent of the number of organisms. If you are going to have a heat wave, it's going to happen, whether there's one or whether there's a million people in that or animals in that area. The same with hurricanes, earthquakes. So all you have to do is think, is it because of the numbers or is it because it just happens? It's one of those natural catastrophes. Now if we move on, we look at limiting factors.
Okay, here the population where individuals firstly are in various stages of their life cycle. If you look at any population, you find that you get individuals at different stages. That's why we call that the limiting factors, because the resources will maybe be misdistributed. All right, so we say misdistribution of resources. Individuals are not evenly spread in their habitat. Now you can overcome this. How can we overcome this? Education and correct farming methods so that the resource is available now. Pest control and conservation and natural resources.
Farida, if we can just pest control, remember also not using insecticides. Although they are quick and they are very effective, but the organisms that survive become immune to them. Just think of the whole DDT issue that there was a couple of years ago.
And we discussed it also.
We have
earlier.
discussed it. But remember, pest control, you have to control the pests because you're doing monocultures. And if you have a monoculture, which we have to do because we have to feed all these millions of people, one disease, one little pest that gets in there, and it can destroy an entire field of organisms. If we look at the abiotic factors, people, you've got rainfall, temperature, light intensity, which means the amount of light that's getting there, fertility of the soil, which also affects the animals, plant and human populations. And at this point, Farida, I have to tell you, a friend of mine, his husband got a transfer to the Isle of Man. Now, people, it rains there worse than in Seattle. It rains like 10 months of the year. When they immigrated, they were given 6 months of free supply of vitamin D tablets because there's no sunlight. Now or very little. So the animals and plants that live on the Isle of Man are used to very little sunlight. They've adapted to it. Okay, folks, if we look at the biotic factors,
these are plants. Remember, biotic are living components. Plants are affected when leaves are eaten by animals and caterpillars. Therefore, reduction is brought about, and what happens? They cannot photosynthesize any longer. Plants are also affected by parasites, fungus infections, and diseases. We spoke about this much earlier, and remember, this destroys our plants. Animals are affected by the availability of food, shelter, predation, parasitism, and diseases. Remember, only the fittest and the hardiest of the species will survive. So the biotic factors then therefore is dependent on the abiotic factors, and that creates problems for them. And if they reduce, what will happen? The whole economy, ecology, our whole world is
going to just be destroyed. Remember, people, everything on this earth is interdependent. And it's not just the green people, the Greenpeace people, and all of us are dependent on animals and plants and our environment. And the more we destroy it, as we discussed when we did pollution and everything, the more impact it's going to have on us later on, in fact on you. So you must remember that only the hardiest of the species will survive. As humans, we need to make sure, because we are the weakest of the lot. Okay, now if we look at the potential lifespan, this is very, very important, because it's no good to turn around and say, well, the animal lived for the full session of its lifespan. We need to look at how long organisms live and how many they reproduce in that period. So if we look at this,
it says in higher species, mortality, which is the death rate, is high among the very young and the very old. Therefore, this will result from predation, availability of food, competition once again, accidents or natural disasters like earthquakes, forest fires, and floods. Now, these will definitely bring about the mortality rate being high. The potential lifespan of any individual is usually longer than your actual lifespan. Humans are supposed to live to about the age of 70 years, and some live to be more than 100, while others die before the age of 30. And if we look at HIV and AIDS, what's happening? We're getting many younger people dying, so they are not even reaching the potential lifespan, and we find we are actually having a lower or very high mortality rate with our young.
But you know what, with the HIV AIDS people, you've got to remember that we cannot stop this disease. But it takes a person 10 to 15 years once they've been infected to actually get to the end and pass away. But for a large portion of that time, they are functional. But for a large portion they are functional, but at the end they aren't. They can't move. They're tired. Their bodies just don't work, and their bodies let them down, and that puts a lot of impact on the economy and everything else around it.
Learning Channel offers an extensive educational collection ranging from grades 8 to 12 in alignment with the National Curriculum Statement. We offer DVD and workbook sets in a number of different subjects. To buy the Learning Channel series, check out our website on www.learn.co.za or call us on 011 639 0179.